This is Paul Levy here, enjoying a sunset here in Brighton. And this is the first of a number of very, very short reflection pieces to look at digital innovation from a few different angles. And though we're here at the end of summer, and actually the weather forecast is promising a heat wave, uncharacteristic for September, I wanted to reflect on a bit of a buzz phrase which has been around for a couple of years but has been quoted quite a lot recently, and it's of interest both from an academic and a practitioner point of view, and it is the notion that we've entered or are entering the AI winter, the artificial intelligence winter. The notion of the AI winter is that the development of artificial intelligence has reached a plateau, a kind of threshold which is leading to a sticking point. And generally speaking, it's the notion that artificial intelligence has gone so far, and without a very significant step forward in the development of AI, we're not going to see much further development for a number of years. And that's an interesting concept, and something that's difficult for a lot of people working in AI who've been used to the hype, used to the idea this is a relentless and positive and optimistic development towards, AI essentially taking over the world and being at the heart of pretty much all digital innovation. Now, if you as a researcher look out there beyond that hype, you will find all kinds of exciting and interesting innovation projects that are taking place around the development of AI. And here, still in the midst of COVID-19, AI is at the heart of the search for vaccines, for treatments, and some of the big data projects that are all about trying to find out where AI came from in the first place, and so on. We're talking about the delivery safely of medicines, via drones and via robots, all kinds of stuff. And you'll still see regularly all kinds of projects that are talking about automated manufacturing using AI, and the arrival of robots in health services, in the military, in manufacturing, in even in hotels and cafes. But at the heart of it still is, for me personally, is a sort of disappointment that the robots don't look that impressive. Most of them are anthropomorphized, and it's not how robots will really develop. They won't look like people walking around as you've seen in Star Wars and other science fiction films. And at the heart of that is the AI winter. It's the idea that we've hit a threshold, we've hit a limit. We can't really go much further. And the reason for that is that the algorithms required are going to have to be kind of created by algorithms themselves. That coding is going to have to give a more evolutionary punch or push forward, so that AI is going to become more and more complex. And the limitations around that are actually the limitations around computing itself, and the amount of processing power and speed that's going to be needed to get even close to new versions of automated thinking, let alone being able to enhance the human brain. And at one level, some people will be aghast at what they're hearing and say, no, we're in the AI summer, the AI spring. But the reality is a lot of innovators and investors are aware now that to get to the next level of AI is going to require a lot of innovation and investment. And we've reached technical limits, that the algorithms that we've got are simplistic compared to the algorithms that we need. And the innovation processes we've got are fairly primitive to the kind of innovation processes we need, that are going to have to be really transformational. And in a way, we're in a position of we don't really know what we don't know yet. And so you can start to look at that, and I would suggest you have a look at what the AI winter is all really about. It's about the notion of having reached a limit, and a limit that now we just have to keep perhaps incrementally working away, and just enhancing what we've currently got, as well as now having some real moonshot thinking, as it's called, to try and redefine AI in lots of different ways. Certainly the idea of the enhanced human brain is a limit for AI, because actually the human brain is limited to our flesh and blood. And so the metaphor of the human brain may not necessarily be the metaphor that we need. And I've been interested in that before too, that we have to imagine new forms of thinking and new processes that yet we haven't really imagined. So some of the science fiction images of an AI world are a long way off. Even if the marketeers and the kind of AI optimists would have you think differently and say it's only 20 years away, a lot of research into innovation itself shows that the visionaries are often far too optimistic, and it takes a lot longer for us to break through to the things that we imagined 20, 30, 50 years ago. The AI winter, therefore, is a limitation. It's also a limitation in terms of the sheer processing power that's needed, the sheer use of, electricity in a world that is talking about sustainability, and the pure processing power that's needed now to get to where we want to get to. And some people are looking towards things like quantum computing as a way to overcome those physical limitations of processing speed, power, storage, the energy required to run the sheer amount of processing power. But we are not even beginning to get really towards quantum computing. You may have heard of the first quantum computers, but they're at the very early stages. So the AI winter sounds like it's spoiling the party. It certainly is for the optimists, but as digital innovation enthusiasts, researchers, academics, practitioners, we'll notice that that's how innovation often works, that you get quite a high amount of blue sky thinking and innovation. It often gets to prototypes, early products, and some of the products that we use. But we may be getting to a position now where the AI winter may be 10, 15, 20, maybe longer, where we will find incremental innovation, a lot of imagination and new thinking, but we won't get to the place if we want to yet without much, much higher levels of investment and breakthroughs in computer processing, new approaches and new models. So take a look at what the AI winter is about. Do you agree with it? Do you think that I'm being negative, or am I being a realist? What is the evidence for the AI winter? And equally, what's the evidence for the idea that actually there will be no AI winter and we're not in one? But if there is an AI winter, we're going to have to meet that challenge and perhaps look beyond the hype.